What up, everybody? Welcome to Show Me the Meaning, Wisecrack's movie podcast.
Show me the magic!
My name is Jared. I'm joined here by the Show Me the Meaning crew. We got Austin.
Yo, what up?
And Ryan.
What up, film fans?
And today, let's do it. Today we're talking about The Prestige, the 2006 film directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, and Rebecca Hall. As always, we're going to go around and get first impressions. What was it like the first time you saw this movie? And what was it like revisiting it for this podcast? Let's start with Austin.
Yeah, it's interesting because this film came out around the same time as the Ed Norton, what was it, The Illusionist?
The Illusionist, yeah.
Right? And you know how Hollywood loves to double up, right? It's like Dante's Peak and Volcano and Illusionist and
it's
Prestige.
weird when that happens. Bugs Life and Ants, of course.
Yeah. Do they like that, or does that just happen incidentally?
I think it's a coincidence.
Yeah, I imagine.
Because there's like Frankenstein and I, Frankenstein.
It happens all the
Mowgli
time.
and Jungle Book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I bet it's the sort of thing where there's like a race, right? Where you get studios and production companies that are like, these motherfuckers are going to get it out. Well, we got to capitalize on it because we can't come out a year later. We have to come out in the same time, and then we'll try and like snag from them. Or maybe like we can mutually enforce each other. So I went in.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah.
I was just going to say my least favorite one of those is the Steve Jobs marathon of movies where all three of them sucked. Every one of them sucked more than the other one.
Wait, what's the third one? There's the one with Ashton Kutcher, there's the one with Michael Fassbender, and then what's the other one?
There's I, Steve from Funny or Die, the first one. Are you kidding me?
Excuse me. Sorry.
So, like, I think I went in with this kind of thinking about it in that framework. And so I remember the first time I saw it, I was actually pretty underwhelmed. And I don't know why. I didn't love it. And it's been one of those films that I've actually started to love in subsequent viewings more and more and more and more. And I actually had a thought, and Joy, our producer, gave me some shit about this in our Telegram message earlier, because I was talking about like a potential title for this episode. And I was like, low-key Nolan's best film. Because I kind of had this thought after watching it last night. I was like, this might be one of my favorite Nolan films. To me, this is like in the top tier. This might be better than like some of the Batman films.
Well, I would say
Rises.
Some of the Batman films. Yeah.
For sure, Rises. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe even Begins. Maybe
No.
Dark Knight. But I'm starting to become less and less enamored by the Dark Knight as time goes on, and I think that it's good and it was great for what it did, but I'm thinking like in terms of a movie being pulled together, some of the drama, some of the twists, some of the fun, I fucking love this movie so much, man.
I think you just need to like not think about The Dark Knight for a decade and then watch it, and then I think it'll come back to you how awesome it is.
It holds up.
That's probably the problem. Yeah, I'm so burned out, like analyzing it and thinking about it. Obviously,
you just get saturated in it.
Yeah, that might be it.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, what about you?
I don't love this movie.
Okay.
I appreciate it for what it is. It's a masterfully put together movie, like all of Chris Nolan's movies. His screenplays everyone goes to the movies to see his movies because of the spectacle, but really you got to give him credit for his screenplay writing.
Totally.
They're just so tight.
Is it Jonathan's screenplay?
This one is. Not all of them are.
Good ones are.
They're both great. They're both amazing filmmakers.
Yeah.
And they're both amazing writers. And so that's what I definitely am in awe of in this movie. And then yeah, when it gets to the end, big spoiler alert, when it gets to the big twist, I do love that twist, and I find myself thinking about that twist a lot. And it's cinematically, the way that I don't love his kind of flashbacky style that he has, his cinematic style, but he does it pretty well. Like, he's very good at it. But it just doesn't move me emotionally like, it should, or like a movie should, just in general, which maybe, I don't know, there's something to be said. His movies aren't all emotional, but I think he's tried to fix that lately by getting like McConaughey and Leonardo DiCaprio and people that can really pull off the emotions, which is what he says in interviews. But yeah, this movie, it leaves me feeling kind of cold, and I love magic, man. This is probably the best magic movie, but that's not saying much when your fucking competition is The Illusionist and the Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
Fuck those movies.
So yeah, I just don't really love this movie's okay. It has cool shit in it that is that's really cool, but I don't know. See.
Okay.
Speaking of The Illusionist, though, the French animated one is
okay.
Is it the same story?
No.
Oh, okay. Different film entirely.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan, it's interesting you say that about the reveal that you think about a lot. Which reveal?
The reveal.
Spoiler territory.
The reveal of the final shot where it's revealed that he has been killing himself every night, a clone of himself.
Okay. See, that's why I have struggled with this movie before. Because the first time I saw this movie, I thought that it worked really well as a movie, but didn't work very well as a magic trick. Because as soon as I understood what the machine was, and as soon as I saw Hugh Jackman place a gun right next to the machine before he turns it on, I immediately knew what was going on every time he did the trick. Yeah, I did.
You didn't think that maybe he put the gun there to like kill himself, like in case he distorted himself and he was all fucked up, and so that's why he put the gun there so that he could kill himself afterwards?
Well, no, I just assumed that he didn't want two of himself, and that, because he knows that he's quite a narcissist and subject to a lot of very manic behavior, so he'd probably kill himself. And then as soon as I saw Borden get accused for his murder when he sees Angier drown in the tub, I'm not exactly the most perceptive first-time movie viewer. There are plenty of movies that have flown right over my head upon first viewing. But for some reason, for this movie, I got it early on, and that's why the movie failed for me as a magic trick. However, the reveal that did always get me was the one about the twins. That I did not get.
That's a cool twist, too.
Yeah.
You know what I think, though? I think what this film is so interesting about is, because obviously now I've seen it multiple times, and so the twist isn't as impactful. But that's not what is so interesting to me about the film. What's interesting about the film is like the philosophy behind it, right? And I don't think that gets lost, which I'm sure we'll get into after we do the breakdown. But I don't think that gets lost. As a matter of fact, I almost think it makes it better, because the whole idea is that
the philosophy of that you must kill for entertainment. Right?
That's right. That it takes sacrifice.
Yes, right. Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
That little bird has to die. Okay, yeah. Well, I can't wait to talk about that. So let's get through this recap.
But wait, Austin, did you finish your point?
Oh, sorry.
Because I'm leaving it on the cliff so that we can talk about it on the other side of the breakdown.
Okay.
As soon as we get this recap, we'll talk about it. All right. So a bitter rivalry starts between magicians Robert Angier and Alfred Borden when Borden ties the wrong knot during a magic stunt that kills Angier's wife. Borden then meets a woman named Sarah and falls in love, but only seems to connect with her half the time. When they each start their own magic career, Borden reveals his greatest trick, the transported man, in which he seems to teleport between two wardrobes. Consumed with envy and ever the showman, Angier hires a double and tells his assistant Olivia to spy on Borden to learn his tricks, but she ends up falling in love with Borden. Angier's act attracts more attention than Borden's, but Borden gets the best of Angier and humiliates him during his act, driving Angier further into madness and desperation. Through Olivia, Angier gets a copy of Borden's diary and the keyword to decode it, Tesla. This drives Angier to seek out Nikolai Tesla in Colorado Springs, where he demands Tesla make him a transporting man machine that he also made Borden. But turns out the diary is just a distraction and no machine was ever made. But Tesla makes the machine anyway, except instead of a machine that transports things, it replicates them. Angier brings the machine back to London and brings the house down with his new transported man trick. But one night, Borden sneaks backstage, sees Angier drown in a tank, and is put on death row for his murder. In prison, Borden is visited by one Lord Cadlow, who is actually Angier, seemingly taunting him from beyond the grave. Borden is hung, and Angier returns to the theater where he is shot by Borden. Turns out Borden has a twin brother, and they've been switching off playing the role of Borden. The film ends with Angier dying while he's surrounded by the tanks containing the previous versions of himself he had to drown over and over and over again to achieve his trick. End of movie. All right, before we get into Austin's philosophizing, I got to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Skillshare. Most of us are stuck inside right now, some of us with not much to do except wait for things to get back to normal whenever that may be. Actually, it seems like it's kind of coming, for better or worse. Anyway, one thing you can do to keep your mind limber and keep yourself from going insane is to learn some new skills, and that's where Skillshare comes in. If you're looking to explore new skills or get inspired or deepen your existing passions, Skillshare is an online learning community where you can explore and discover thousands of classes on a wide variety of topics like graphic design, productivity, creative writing, film and video, freelancing, and more. And I want to emphasize the community aspect because during quarantine, finding a group of people online who share the same interests as you can be really rewarding because meeting people in real life is really hard right now. If you're looking for a class to take, in the past I've recommended iPhone filmmaking, creating cinematic video on your phone, also creative nonfiction, Write Truth with Style with Susan Orlean, both great classes I recommend. But lately I've been focusing on more lifestyle-oriented stuff, so lately I've been plugging the class Everyday Minimalism, Find Calm and Creativity in Simple Living by Aaron Boyle. It's the perfect class to take in these times when everyone is trying to live simply, cheaply, and find a sense of calm while being productive. Aaron will teach you how to navigate stressful situations and how to make the best with less, not more, which is something that's quite important in my life. So I definitely recommend Aaron's class. When you compare Skillshare to expensive in-person workshops or night classes, it's quite affordable. An annual subscription is less than $10 a month. And right now they're offering Show Me the Meaning listeners 2 free months. All you got to do is go to Skillshare.com/wisecrack. Again, that's Skillshare.com/wisecrack for 2 free months of unlimited access to awesome classes. And now back to the show. All right. So, Austin, you say the thing that really inspires you the most about this movie is its philosophy. I can't wait to hear what you're saying, what you're going to say, not being facetious.
Yeah. No, I think that this is actually Nolan's most personal film because I think he sees himself as a magician. And I think he sees the role of the filmmaker as being identical to the role of the magician. You've got the 3 acts, which I think replicate the 3-act structure. So you can't just take something away. You've got to bring it back, which is why he always has these twists, or he always has this kind of like grand conclusion at the end, right, that he gives you. I think that he literally views himself and views the magician as kind of doing the exact same thing. And really, what is that? It's ultimately playing with the audience's emotions and with their imaginations. And that final speech at the end where Angier says that Borden never got it. You never understood what it was. It wasn't about being the technician, right? And people always think about Nolan, too, as being a technician. But it's like, no. It's not about being a technician. It's about the look on their faces. And that's it, right? It's about the joy. It's about being a performer. And the problem is when a filmmaker is behind the camera, the filmmaker is the one who is stuck below the stage, like Angier is, like the great Danton is when he has the body double. And that's got to be torturous, right? But what does he crave more than anything? He wants to see the look on their faces. And that's what I think this film is really all about.
See, I love in this movie, there's like a kind of dichotomy between above stage and below stage. I mean, in a literal sense, Angier wants to be above stage to get the applause, so he ends up having to kill himself every night to achieve it, and his previous self dies in the tank below stage. Obviously, there's a scene that you were alluding to where he's below stage basking in the applause, even though that's not what he wants. But similarly, I love this, is that Borden also dies quote unquote below stage because his hanging is with a trap door, basically. But both Angier and Borden are underground per se, because Angier is stuck under the stage and able to bask in his applause, whereas Borden is underground in the sense that he can't live a normal life with his respective lover or their respective lovers.
Isn't it great too that the role of the actor in this film, the guy who actually is an actor, is like a slob, a drunk. He's the one who gets the praise. Is that Nolan saying like the actors get all this praise, but look at them, all they do?
They're just my puppets.
Yeah, but he's really the magician behind it all, right?
Yeah, I think I mean, there's a lot to that.
Yeah, well, and then the whole idea of like, that man's reach exceeds his imagination. There's that great conversation that he has with Tesla where it's like, man's reach exceeds his grasp. But then the great Danton says man's reach exceeds his imagination, which means that even what we can conceive, we can actually extend beyond. Where and how? Through magic or through film. And I think that, again, is something else, right? It's about how you can exceed even beyond what you can conceive of through magic and through the power of illusion, which I think Nolan sees as being done through the medium of film.
Well, what do you think that line means just within the context of the film? Not necessarily the meta reading, but man's reach exceeds his imagination. To me, I always read this as man is almost, because there's a dark side to this. It's that man is able to do things that are so horrific that one could not imagine them, which I think is what Nolan was trying to achieve by the end of the movie, in that a man is able to do such horrible things, such as kill himself over and over and over again, which is so perverted it's beyond your imagination. Except for me, I guess, because I'm a sick fuck and I saw it coming. But that's what I initially thought it meant.
This is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll let Ryan jump in because I've been dominating it. But I think that this is really the triumph of science, right? Because this is one of the things that he says. What is the ultimate trick? The ultimate trick actually isn't illusion. It's actually science, right? So, and this goes to, I think, Nolan's later work in Interstellar, where he really does seem to have a love affair with man's capacity to transcend his or her limits, right? And I think it's science and technology and innovation that kind of becomes the thing that he thinks can ultimately get us beyond. And what is film? Film is a type of scientific technological play that kind of layers on top of the imagination. So it's not just illusion and fancy storytelling, but it's actually using the tools of humanity's ingenuity via technology and science that can allow us to exceed the conceptions that we kind of just make up in our minds. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on just how he's talking about magic in the script and in the film, he uses the editing and all the film tools he has to trick the audience the entire movie, right? He does the whole kind of Rashomon film style where he's showing you the same scenes over and over, but then you're getting more information every once in a while as he's wanting to give it to you. And I think I read it before that there was like 146 jump cuts in this film, which is that's a lot of jump cuts. And
that is
so he's constantly fucking with the audience just in the form of this movie about fucking with the audience in a magician. So the movie, it's cool. This is a pretty meta movie that we could break down. But yeah, it's a film that he's using magic to talk about filmmaking, but then using filmmaking to really make magic awesome and fool you with film, which is what every movie tries to do slyly and subtly. But this movie does it great.
And that's what he says, right? You're exactly right. Every film tries to do that. But he almost breaks the magician's code, so to speak, right? Because he tells you that that's what he's doing in this film. But then he does it because then what does he say? But the audience doesn't care because the audience doesn't want to look at it. The audience wants to be fooled. So we go into the magic show. We go into the theater, or now in isolation, we go into the Netflix account and we lie to ourselves and we say, fool me. And that's the whole suspension of disbelief. And it's at that point we've like entrusted ourselves. We've like laid ourselves into the hands of the magician, to the filmmaker. And then it's what they do with those expectations and with that desire to be fooled that either makes the film amazing or makes it fall short. Because, you're watching a film sometimes And then you become really aware, like, oh my God, I'm watching a stupid movie right now. That's because the director didn't do a good job of holding our disbelief. But Nolan is kind of like, he's telling us that's exactly what our responsibility is. And ultimately, what's the point? It's the look on their faces. It's entertainment. It's to make us happy.
You know, and you can connect this to a lot of Christopher Nolan's work, and I'd never really thought about it in this context, but Austin knows how I'm always going on about noble lies and stuff like that. But but in the end, so, you know, at the end of Insomnia, it ends with a noble lie, or at least there's the offer of a noble lie where Hilary Swank's character offers to hide the truth that Al Pacino's character was the murderer. Of course, Memento ends with a noble lie because he lies to himself in order to give himself purpose and deny the knowledge that he had already killed John G. Of course, The Dark Knight famously ends with a noble lie. You could argue The Dark Knight Rises ends with one too, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, at the end of this movie, he says Angier says the audience knows the truth. The world is simple, miserable, solid all the way through. But if you can fool them even for a second, then you can make them wonder. And then you see you've got something very special, the look on their faces. And I never really thought about it in context of this theme that Nolan keeps coming back to, that people need deception. They need some sort of lie in order to just maintain a standard of living that is bearable.
Yeah, to cover the cracks, right?
We like it.
I mean, if life is filled with anxiety and fear, and what do we need? We need that retreat into something that creates a cohesion, that covers it over, you know? We talked about this. If people are interested, I don't know if they've seen it, the Nolan video part 1 that we did. And which is just one angle. I think we did this 3-part series that talks about how some of his films deal with the self, some deal with society, and some deal with the universe. And this is definitely one of those films that deals with like human subjectivity. Like, what does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be a self? And I think you're exactly right, that Nolan at least seems to believe that lies, or that the imagination, or that the noble lie, that there needs to be some way that we perform that type of dishonesty to ourselves that allows us to actually be human, right? That allows us to function in a world. Yeah.
One more note on the bad guy. What's Hugh Jackman's character's name again?
Angier. It's interesting you call him the bad guy, because I was at one point.
He's the bad guy.
Well, you know, we can talk about that.
I was also at some point going to ask, does this movie have a protagonist? But go on.
I was just going to say it has some similarities to the last movie we talked about. I feel like There Will Be Blood, where it's kind of an aspire for greatness at all costs movie. Like this guy's going to, you know, he's trying to be the best magician, you know, Plainview's trying to be the best oil man and get all the power. Or like you're going to do like a Citizen Kane kind of similarity, where it's just a guy who is just a megalomaniac who is consumed with his own ego. But in this context, though, I think it's cool because it is about entertainment. He's obsessed with attention from other people, whereas as opposed to money or whatever, which is different. And I, you know, it's almost like you could put it into our own modern reality landscape of people just wanting to get that attention, whatever they can. It's a drug, you know, and he gets it every night, and he'll kill for it, which is a fucked up thing to think about, which is what I like about the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because you got Borden, who his obsession is just to be the greatest magician possible. Whereas Danton, it almost seems that he does have like a superficiality. For him, it's never been about the magic. For him, it is about the like adulation and the praise that he can get. Right?
And he's the much flashier showman.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is something interesting.
So wait, what do you think? Is this a movie with two anti-heroes? Because I think it's almost impossible to call Borden a hero simply because too much information is withheld from the audience to identify with his struggles throughout the entirety of the movie. So he seems like the villain for most of the movie, and I guess Angier is our anti-hero. I don't really know how to formulate this. I think Angier is the protagonist, at least.
I agree. I agree. Angier, the film is mostly told from his journey, with Borden being the foil to that. But the funny thing is who wins in the end is like Borden's duality wins in the end, right? Or does he? Or does,
well, it's only because Michael Caine, who is the moral backbone of the movie, he tips off to Borden where Angier is going to be or something like that.
Yeah, because somehow the drive for just pure self-satisfaction and adulation, it's immoral because it ultimately it leads him to like kill Borden, which was like the ultimate obsession, right? Like, I think we need to think that the real transporting man was designed ultimately with that limited engagement. One, because he's cloning himself, but two, also to get Borden downstairs to be framed for his murder, which I think is intentionally planned. That's part of the plan of doing that limited engagement show the way that it is, right? Because he knows that Borden's curiosity, he's going to have to like investigate and go backstage. So I think that's intentional. Yeah, so I thought that was intentional. But then the idea is then he does that. So his whole life is about this vengeance and this revenge because Borden kills his wife early on, right? But then when the daughter gets involved, that's when Michael Caine is like, your obsession and your drive for success went too far.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys think that there's any... So we've been talking about the meta reading of this movie quite a bit, and Michael Caine's character's name is Cutter. Do you think that this is like an...
He's the editor, man.
Is it an overt nod to editing and how editing will, maintain the illusion until the ending for the audience?
Yes.
That's really fucking interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, totally, right?
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah, it really could be. Michael Caine does that, though, in all of Nolan's films, though, right? Well, that Michael Caine is in. He's always, like, the moral guy.
Except in Interstellar, he's the guy who lies, another, in his mind, noble lie. But he lies about the fact that there's a plan A or B in Interstellar, and he sends them on, like, a suicide mission.
That's so awesome. Michael Caine's been in every Nolan movie.
I know, man. That's what I needed as an actor. I just needed to befriend like a badass director who was just going to cast me in everything, no matter what, just force me down people's throats.
Yeah, you need to be the pig in Toy Story, who's in every Pixar movie. Think about that paycheck you get every year. You're like, all right, sure. I'll be in the next Pixar movie.
Yeah.
Didn't have to ask
Hire
me
me
twice.
Yeah.
Real quick, what do you guys think about Tenet being in theaters? Because you see the commercials on there and it says coming to theaters, coming to theaters, coming to theaters.
July, right? Are they still sticking with that?
They're sticking with it.
They're sticking with it. What do you think? Do you think people are going to go?
Risky move, baby. Yeah, I mean, they're going to go in parts of the country. Yes, I think they're going to go. For one, if you think about it, they're going to have like all of the real estate in the movie theaters because not many movies are getting released now. So maybe that'll be to their advantage. But I do think that in certain parts of the regions that they're not going to get as much box office as they would. But who knows, man.
Are they going to impose social distancing rules in the cinemas? Like only an occupancy of 50, so like a person for every 3 seats or something like that?
Dude, honestly, I could see that being how it is forever. You go to the movie and you're going to have like a seat or two in between people, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully they put dummies up there, sex dolls.
Or this is when the Prestige comes. This is all part of Nolan's magic trick, and he's going to come out and he's somehow going to be like, God. Man's imagination exceeds his grasp, and he's going to be involved with I don't know what I'm saying.
All right, I know we're talking about the Prestige, but we have to at some point in this podcast all give our predictions about what the fuck Tenet is about.
See, I haven't put that much thought into it.
Have you seen the last trailer? Have you seen the last?
No, I'm a big fan of going into movies blind.
Yeah, I haven't been paying attention either. What do you think it's going to be?
Because I know it's going to see. I know I'm going to see it.
Well, of course I'm going to see it, but I can't help myself, and I'm trying to put the puzzle together in my head. But why do we not want to talk about it? Fuck.
No, you could talk about it.
Well, it's
not spoilers. I don't know. I saw something on TV and it looked like there's some sort of. I mean, the movie's called Tenet. That's a palindrome. It looks like there's some kind of like. I don't know, things are being reversed gravitationally and chronically or something like that.
Well, and the part of the tagline that stuck out to me was that it's a movie not told in complete real time or something like that. So I feel like there's totally kind of a Inception time stretching element, Dunkirk even, where
Dunkirk too, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting some. The main characters are experiencing time in a different level than the rest of the characters. I have no fucking clue.
Dude,
At first, I thought it was about the afterlife.
It's gonna be so good. I'm getting the coronavirus just to see that movie. I don't give a shit.
You're so brave, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, since we do this, why don't you do your ranking of Nolan? I mean, there's like what 12 of them or something like that. So you don't have to go through all of them, but like, what is like the top tier? Sample of middle tier, and then are there films that you don't like of his?
Oh, for sure. All right. So number 1, Dark Knight. Number 2, I'm gonna go Inception. Then 3, Memento. 4, we're gonna go Interstellar. Then Batman Begins. Then Dunkirk. The Dark Knight Rises at the very bottom. I hate that fucking movie.
Wait, you didn't
Really?
even mention The Prestige.
Honestly, Prestige is one of the bottom ones, dude. I like it, but
Wow.
it's probably right above Insomnia for me, and probably right above Following. So, anyway, that's my list. Sorry if I rambled.
No, it's a pretty good list. I would go. I mean, 1, The Dark Knight. 2, gosh, maybe Memento. 3. Inception. 4,
All right.
Batman Begins. 5, Dunkirk. 6, I guess 6, The Prestige.
See?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that it's not good. It's great.
Exactly. The
Yeah,
only
it's
one
just
I
hard
like
when,
is Batman
like-
Rises.
Yeah, he just doesn't have any misses, really. You know, like you can't really fault him for Following and Insomnia. Insomnia wasn't his script, right? And that's not normal. Normally,
There's cool shit in it, but it's not
Yeah.
the best.
And then like Following is his first film, so it's like
There's cool shit in that. It's not the
I know
best.
it's cool. That's
Yeah,
what I mean.
solid
It's like,
movie.
you can't really fault him. I don't know. I think for me, my first tier of films, maybe I'm just having Batman fatigue, but like Memento has always been my favorite of his films. It's one of my favorite films of all time, so it's number 1 for me. And then I would have to say like Prestige and Dunkirk are up in there, and yeah, then we'll have The Dark Knight up in there as well in the top tier. And then like I guess Batman Begins is in the top tier, and then middle tier is like Batman or Dark Knight Rises and if there is a bottom tier, but like we'll just combine the middle and the bottom tier, and like Insomnia and Following and stuff like that. But I kind of think that Prestige for me is in that top tier. You know, like is it his best film? No, I think Memento is his most intriguing, his most interesting. It's one of my favorite films, but I think it's in that top tier.
Middle
For
tier.
me, for me, everything is top tier except for The Dark Knight Rises, which I put in a lower tier.
See, I dig it though. Like, I don't hate that movie like everybody does. I still think there's a lot of cool shit in there. Like, why?
There
why
is.
do you-
I hate
why
that
do you-
movie like
spoiled.
everybody does.
I'm spoiled. It's really not that bad. I actually every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more. Which is, but having said that, I did start at the very bottom. But
Every time I watch it, it pisses me off a little bit more. Like I'm just like, wow, this could have been so awesome. The perfect end of the perfect trilogy. You fucked it up so bad. Why, Chris? Why? You're so brilliant the rest of the time. Why? Okay, I'll stop.
no one bats 100 in this industry.
Yeah,
That is true.
All
That
right,
is true.
we've gone on a tangent. I think we're done talking about Prestige. All agree it's a good movie.
Oh.
Got some cool shit.
well, we got to talk about David Bowie.
Oh yeah. Well, I dug his performance. I thought he was good.
I got a little emotional because this is the first time I had seen him on screen since like he passed away, I think. And I didn't remember. And then all of a sudden when he starts talking about going to Tesla, I'm like, oh yeah, that's David Bowie. I'm like, oh cool.
Well,
man.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. See, I had watched Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me recently, so I had seen David Bowie since his passing.
Yeah.
I just want.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: if there's any weak point in the film, I do think. I mean, one, I don't think that Scarlett Johansson's character is all that great.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, she's gorgeous, but like and she does her role as the supposed, like, she's supposed to be the gorgeous distraction, right? Which also is interesting because the magician has to have the distraction. So then, of course, you have her in there. I think there's something interesting about the wife. Is it Sarah? That, like, the way she hangs herself like a bird. The birds that get sacrificed in the cages that get crushed for the purpose of the magic trick. So in Gordon's life, right? She has to get sacrificed so that his magic trick can flourish, so that he can, like, do the big reveal. I think that's interesting. But the biggest weak point, I think, is actually the fact that it went to science. I kind of would have just maybe enjoyed if it stayed with illusion, but it was almost like he was trying to ground all of this illusory stuff, right? That magicians, it's like, oh, it's not real. He had to ground it in something real and then still say that we can exceed, or that we can still entertain through, or that we can transcend. I don't know. To me, that's the only thing I go back and forth on. Like, part of me is like, oh, that's kind of cool. And part of me is kind of like, well, that's just kind of cheesy and easy, you know?
Yeah.
He didn't have that many outs.
Here's a magic machine.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming the first time it happened. Like, because the first time I saw it, I was like, that was actually a moment where I was like, all right, this movie's kind of boring. And wait, there's a magic cloning machine in this movie? Like, I thought this was like a period piece.
Yeah,
and, okay, right. They're going there. All right. And then I got more into it, and that made it go from a D to a C, I think.
Well, he's kind of doing the revisionist history thing that we talk about whenever we're talking about Tarantino movies, because I think that Tesla, he really did go to Colorado Springs at one point. They have references to his beef with Edison and stuff like that. So I mean, it's certainly a lot different than the way Tarantino does it, but cool either way.
Yeah, it would have been cool if fucking Tesla just started, like, murdering Edison and all of his people and got revenge and transformed the history of the world. And then the encore of the film is that the world has been lit up by Tesla's crazy, freaky technology, and everyone clones themselves. Right? And
then he starts a electric car business named after himself.
Oh
God! And then he starts dating Grimes. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
David Bowie dating Grimes. Sweet.
All right, guys. We're going to head into some voicemails. You can hit us up at 213-534-8807 or 21-ELF-HUT-07. It's where the elves party. Let's start off with, we got some voicemails about There Will Be Blood. Let's start off with one from Jason.
Hey, Wisecrack. This is Jason calling in about There Will Be Blood. I wanted to mention two things. The first is about the title. You guys were talking about what the blood is symbolic of, or where it officially, draws inspiration from. And I thought it was worth mentioning that there's a passage in the Bible from the book of the Exodus that specifically uses the phrase, there will be blood. And what's interesting is that for anyone who's seen Magnolia, PTA makes another very overt reference to the book of Exodus in that movie. So I just think that it's fascinating that he clearly has some obsession or relation to this story, and it's kind of woven its way through his filmography. The other thing I wanted to mention just goes to what Austin was saying about the little details that are sprinkled in to show the degradation of Daniel's character. And it's at the very end of the movie when Eli Sunday goes to Daniel's house and he goes and wakes him up in the bowling alley. And where is Daniel sleeping? He's sleeping in the gutter of the alley, which I just think is so brilliant, because even though Daniel has kind of reached the highest peak in terms of affluence and success and career, he's just lost everything that makes him human along the way and has fallen to the lowest place still possible. And he's sleeping in the gutter. And I just think that that's so brilliant, as is the whole movie. And I love your guys' discussion. Thanks, and keep doing you.
All right.
You showed me the meaning there.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Do you think that all those details are attributable to Anderson, or do you think that some of them might be Daniel Day-Lewis too? Because you know how much of a technician he is as well, right? So like maybe he's talking with PTA and is like, hey, what if like his handwriting gets kind of more scribbly, or what if, like, I bet you I don't know if it's true or not, but like I would not be surprised if Daniel Day-Lewis spent 6 months like learning calligraphy and old-fashioned handwriting so that the original signature was actually his hand doing it, right? Like that's how devoted he is to his craft.
Yeah.
So do you think that he's like, oh yeah, we could do that and that could be a nice little flourish, and then oh maybe when he's discovered at the end he's sleeping in the gutter, and then PTA is like, oh yeah, I like that. Like do you think that most of it is PTA, or do you think that like he allows for that type of collaboration with someone like a Daniel Day-Lewis who is obviously so inventive in his own craft?
It's hard to say, but I would probably lean towards him being collaborative. I remember a quote from him once where, and who knows if this is bullshit or not, but somebody asked him about his directing process. And I guess this is kind of dodging the question, but he said, basically just hire the most talented actors you can and feed them lunch well. You know, and he's like, that's the best thing I can do as a director, which I think there's a lot of truth to that. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I mean, just in terms of cinematic things, though, he clearly makes very bold choices in his movies. And I don't think that he's necessarily just fly on the whim of the day doing. I think that a lot of it, he's clearly a very good editor and shoots a lot of coverage, it seems like. I get the impression that he does. And so I think that he can kind of come up with those kind of symbols in the editor room sometimes. I think that happens. But something like, hey, are you going to sleep in the gutter or where are you going to sleep? I think that seems like probably a pretty big choice that he probably made in the script phase or on the day itself. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
See, actors always want to attribute all the inventive things to actors, and filmmakers always want to be like, nah, that was storyboarded.
If the movie's good.
Yeah,
the movie
true.
sucks, and like, the fucking director fucked my edit up, man.
Right.
Or the editor.
All right, let's get one from Jacob, our old boy Jacob.
Good evening, Wisecrack crew. Jacob calling again in regards to There Will Be Blood podcast. I enjoyed the movie very much. Though I still think it is one of the greatest movies ever. Daniel Day-Lewis gives a very excellent performance as Daniel Plainview. Now, one of the things, rewatching it again, is honesty versus dishonesty came to my mind. So, Daniel Plainview does not shy away from what he really is. He is a ruthless businessman who will do whatever it takes to make money. And I think it is in one of the speech he says that I have a competition inside me about who I am. And then you have Eli, who is the holy preacher saint character who really hides who he is behind really narcissism. So I want to know what you guys think about that, the honest man versus the dishonest man, and kind of what it has to relate to the American dream of the honest man always makes the money while the dishonest man doesn't make the money. So, yeah, you guys have a nice day. Try to be safe during this whole thing.
All right. Thanks, Jacob. I guess the thing about this voicemail is I think that Daniel is dishonest. And I think that's one of the most important things about his characters, because he's a fake family man in the same way that Eli's a fake prophet. And so I think that they're both equally dishonest. And as far as the one who wins winning, well, I mean, oil was a good thing to dig for in the dirt rather than faith followers.
Yeah, I wonder that. Do either of them win? Right? Like, he gains a lot
one of them.
monetary.
I mean, one of them dies. So.
Yeah, but maybe he's put out of his misery, or he's released to go to his God or whatever.
Jesus.
Yeah. All right.
No, I think there's no winners in that movie.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. That's the thing is, I think it's a tragic tale. It's a
bleak.
tragic tale. I think it's the more I've been thinking about it, I actually do think it's a kind of post-Western, right? Like it's a revisionist Western. It's a revisionist myth of how the West was founded, rather than looking at cowboys or something like that. Or it's a revisionist myth of how America was founded, right? On oil, with oil being at least the subject matter of this particular examination.
But how's that revisionist, though?
Well, I mean, if it's a revisionist Western, right? Because normally, like the classic Westerns have a particular tale, a particular narratival structure. And so this kind of I still think we could think of it as a Western, right? Like the man of violence kind of thing, and he comes in, and you have like the common land, right? Like that's the big thing in Searchers, and even in Shane, right, where like the fences are getting put up. We talked about this in our Logan video, right, which kind of like replicates this active enclosure, right? You kind of get that here. You have this wide open frontier, and you have him that's like purchasing land, and he goes to the real estate office, and so there's kind of these like Western motifs that are repeated, but it's told from a different perspective, rather than being like ranchers and cowboys saving the day and fighting against like violent, I don't know, Native Americans or whatever it is that they're doing, or like the bad rancher who's trying to steal the cattle or something like that. What you have now is the story of oil, right? But it's kind of told in a similar Western style. But I think it's a tragic tale of the American myth, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 2 great emails that I want to get to real quick before we wrap up. So this one is from, oh, by the way, you can hit us up at movies@wisecrack.co. That's .co, not .com. This first one is from Arsh. Arsh says, love the show, love the fact that you covered this film. I know towards the end you had spoken to the fact that the movie is largely bloodless until the end, where suddenly there's the blood. This was a bit of a running gag online when the film came out, and I also recall that this is one of the earliest, most memed films, with a lot of people running with the milkshake scene and creating comedy from it. Any thoughts as to why you think this movie is so meme-friendly? My thinking is it's simply the fact that it has a lot of tense moments, which are some of its most quotable. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I certainly have vivid recollection of the memes. So that's from Arsh, and I agree. I wonder what makes this film so quotable. And the same reason I would ask what makes The Big Lebowski so quotable. But at least that's funny. This movie's not funny.
No, it is funny. I was just about to say that I think that one of the reasons that this movie is memeable is that Paul Thomas Anderson has a awesome sense of humor and is a funny guy. And I remember when, this was a really bizarre choice for a movie for him to make. Everyone, he went from Punch Drunk Love to this, right? So if you took his filmography and you're kind of like, where's he going? He made all these classics that everyone loves, and he's making this movie about oil men. But I think he's still the same guy that is making this movie about oil men, and he cut it with a slight sense of humor, subtly, and then just Daniel Day-Lewis's pretty over-the-top performance, and Paul Dano's pretty over-the-top performances in a field of other non-actors who are not over-the-top performing, makes it, I think, it gives it a memeable quality to it, and just his filmmaking style is cool and different and modern for a period piece-looking film.
Is it possible that it's just as simple as just it's so good and that makes it funny in a sense? Like when I think of Daniel Day-Lewis, saying, "I've abandoned my child, I've abandoned my boy," or saying, "You're just a bastard from a basket," I don't think it's. I've seen the movie probably 15 times. I've never laughed once during those scenes.
Do you think it's discomfort and tension though? Like I've abandoned my boy doesn't get me chuckling, but "you're just a bastard," it's how cruel he is. It's so ridiculously cruel that it makes us uncomfortable, and discomfort oftentimes is a source of laughter, right? So maybe that's part of it too.
You guys didn't laugh when he was rubbing Eli's face in the mud, like repeatedly over and over again, like to a ridiculous degree.
Oh, no,
but that's not one of the memeable moments.
Right, but I'm just saying that's an attributable moment to PTA kind of having a sense of humor. He let that moment go on for a while where he could have cut. But I would honestly, the milkshake scene is the reason that it's memeable.
And that one's funny. I'll give you that.
That one's hilarious, and I think that's the reason that it caught people's attention in the way it did.
Yeah. All right, this last email is from Aton, and this one is appropriate to some of the Nolan themes that we've been talking about, but it is an email about There Will Be Blood. He says, I think there's another interesting aspect of religion in There Will Be Blood. In the scene in the church when Eli throws the devil out, although as you pointed out, it's obviously phony, the people in the church benefit from it. The woman with arthritis is relieved, and all the people in the church are enthralled by what is happening. Eli is clearly well liked by his churchgoers, and his ideas give them comfort. Eli is a peddler of what Vonnegut calls FOMA, harmless untruths that help people live happier and more fulfilling lives. So at the end of the movie, So even at the end of the movie where Eli yells, "I'm a false prophet, God is a superstition," does this really affect the experiences Eli had in church? I would think not. He is providing a service to the people, whether it is real or not. The only problem comes when the untruths cross over from harmless to harmful, when religion becomes exploitative. Wondering what you guys think of this role of religion. From Aton.
I feel like we've talked about that in some regard before. Like I'm willing to give religions more of a benefit of the doubt. Yeah, in terms of, I don't think that if somebody believes a lot of bullshit that's necessarily being exploitative. It's when money gets involved and stuff, and you're like, oh, the tithing, the prosperity gospel stuff. Like, oh, if you give me 50% of your shit, like you'll be more saved or whatever. That shit obviously is is actual exploitation in my head. But it really, when you talk about like Scientology, I think is the most extreme and relevant example to today. Just on, do you think that's exploitation? And like I said, yeah, when money gets involved, which there's a lot of money that gets thrown around in Scientology, yes. But just reading L. Ron Hubbard's books and buying into his philosophies and living by them and then thinking that's awesome and it is helping your life, I don't find necessarily that much wrong with that or anything exploitative.
Ryan's an advocate of the noble lie, everybody.
Right, exactly. I 100% am. Ignorance is bliss, baby.
Keep that bliss rolling.
Hey, listen, I'm not lying. I'm actually going to do a video on my YouTube channel about like isolation and loneliness that comes from being involved in like academic and philosophical pursuits. If I didn't take the quote unquote red pill, if I didn't go down the rabbit hole, right? Like there's a sense in which life is really enjoyable when you're just like, I don't know, chasing chicks and trying to like travel. And like, if you just have a real simple outlook on things, the more complex things get and the more difficult and critical and things like that, that things can get, it can like add difficulties and make life a lot more, I don't know, a lot more pressing down upon you. Whereas like, in my old evangelical days, man, all I wanted to do was like meet a cool chick and like surf and hang out with my friends and like try to worship God and help people. Life was pretty good, but I just kind of realized that I was maybe full of shit in some ways. And so it kind of opened things up. But what's better? I don't really ultimately know, Hey,
man, you're still surfing.
I am still surfing.
All right. We're going to go ahead and close it for today. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. But before we go, where can we find you guys on the internet? Ryan.
I am on @Ryan's Game Show on Twitter. I tweet sometimes now. And then I'm at Ryan's Game Show and at Ryan's Shorts on YouTube. All the time, baby. Go check it out.
All the time.
Hit that bell.
All right. And Austin.
Yeah, you can hit me up Twitter, Austin_Hayden, on Insta, AUS_HAY. I do have a YouTube channel. I was reading through the Bible, and then it just got to be too much. I'm still going to finish my read through of the Bible. So check that out. I'm still doing it, but I'm not. I was doing it every day before, and I was uploading videos every day, and it just got to be too fucking crazy. I'm going to be doing those periodically, but I'm also doing other stuff where, like I just talked about this issue about isolation and loneliness, but also on like Christianity and socialism. I'll talk about like love and all kinds of philosophy and theological and maybe film and cultural shit. So you can just search my name, Austin Hayden Smith, on YouTube for that.
All right. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Until next time, bring us out, Ryan.
Goodbye from Hollywood, California!